And we could do that in Chicago, by the way, if they would let us. If the mayor was a low IQ person, but he should understand this. This is a very serious thing.
Well, I don't spend much time thinking about him. 90% of what he says is likely to be untrue anyway.
Some of what Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson had to say after President Donald Trump called him out for public safety issues in the city of Chicago. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can wake up with us with Illinois in Focus and get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. So we've been tracking this story out of Chicago, especially when it comes to Illinois and no cash bail, and the story being that passenger that was lit on fire on a CTA line, and the individual suspected of this having been charged with dozens of previous crimes, but still out on the streets, and people pointing to no cash bail in the state of Illinois as the culprit, and President Donald Trump calling out Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and others on this. And then you have also the violence that happened after the Christmas tree festival. So we talked about this last week, and you can go and check out the previous segments of Illinois in Focus, and you can get updated there. But, you know, the president making his comments, obviously making this a prominent issue, especially for those who live in Illinois. So let's kind of just review a little bit here. You've got earlier in this ongoing story, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson laying out what happened on the CTU and how devastating it was and his reaction to it.
Shock as well as the horror that we all experience of the arson attack that took place on the Blue Line. This is an absolute failure of our criminal justice as well as our mental health institutions. This individual was charged with dozens of felonies over the past 3 decades. He was clearly seriously mentally disturbed and was a danger to himself and to others. The system that we had failed to intervene, and now we have a woman who is fighting for her life, and I am praying for her and her full recovery. We're also praying for her family at this time. This is a horrific tragedy that should have never happened. Our CTA system provides roughly 1 million rides per day. It is critical in this moment that we reassure riders and make the necessary investments so that riders and workers feel safe on our trains.
Again, this was Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson after the horrifying incident on the CTU, talking about the individual and dozens of prior arrests that has led to people critical of the state's end of cash bail. Governor J.B. Pritzker, and again, this is from last month, reacting to that as well, saying that, they changed the money bond system in Illinois, getting rid of it. He says that bail allowed for people to get out if they could afford it.
Bail is sort of an automatic out for people who just happen to have enough money. And an automatic incarceration for somebody who happens not to have enough money. Rather use judgment, good judgment, in most cases, to keep violent criminals or people who have mental health problems. And it's my understanding, at least all the reading that I've done, I don't know more than that, that this person seems to have had some serious mental health challenges. And so that's another aspect of what I think judges need to take into consideration. I want to make sure that we are providing the kind of mental health that should be available to people who need it, and especially somebody who has the potential for, or who has in the past, committed some violence.
And again, this was all last month after that horrifying attack on the CTU line. And you have the Network for Pretrial Justice putting out a statement just before the holidays. And this is the organization that helps fight for ending cash bail in the state of Illinois. And they say that pretrial reform not at root of the Blue Line tragedy. They go on to say that their hearts go out to the victim, Bethany McGee, and her family, who experienced an unimaginable horror. Her recovery will be long, and we know the pain and fear of what happened will live with her forever. If we are to respect victims and survivors when tragedies happen, they say that we should tell the truth, look to see if and when our system failed, and try to correct it. It goes on to say, if we followed this course every time, rather than playing politics to score points for our favorite causes, we might actually live in healthier, safer communities. Unfortunately, we almost never have honest conversations that lead to sustainable long-term solutions, and this case is, so far, no different. Predictably, some people are blaming the Pretrial Fairness Act for what happened in Chicago. Here is what they got wrong. Under the old pretrial system that relied on money bond, it would have been possible for prosecutors to seek Mr. Reed's pretrial detention in the aggravated battery case that was pending in state court. The judge would have had no power to deny his release. That means if we had retained the old system that Donald Trump and many lawmakers are praising, Mr. Reed would likely have been ordered to pay a money bond and could still have been released, exactly as had been roughly done 70 times in the past. In this case, the Pretrial Fairness Act actually allowed the prosecutor the option to seek detention and for the judge to consider detaining Mr. Reed while he awaited trial. It's hard to see how one can conclude that this tragedy is evidence that we should return to the old money bond system. The new system also needs to be understood in perspective. Most people on pretrial release are succeeding, they say. In the 2 years since the Pretrial Fairness Act took effect, 94% of more than 128 people released pretrial have not been charged with new offenses against a person. A study from Loyola University found that since the Pretrial Fairness Act went into effect, judges are receiving more information and spending more time on decisions regarding pretrial detention. The median length of a detention hearing is now between 10 to 30 minutes, up from a short 3 to 4 minutes under the money bond system. Judicial decision-making is now more transparent. Prior to the Pretrial Fairness Act, judges often set money bonds without explaining their reasoning. Now judges are putting their reasoning for releasing or detaining a person on the record. And it goes on from there, talking about how many elected officials implying that Mr. Reed has been released 72 times under the Pretrial Fairness Act, but Mr. Reed's 50 years old. He's been arrested 72 times since he was 18 years old. Illinois ended money bond in 2023. Mr. Reed's prior arrests and releases almost all occurred under the money bond system. That should demonstrate that the old system, not the new one, didn't work. So again, goes on to explain more about all of the different aspects of ending money bond that the Pretrial Fairness Act argues. And they say that it's not the end of money bond. That's the reason why this happened on the CTU Blue Line. But you've got, again, even Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about it and how he's open to looking at any possible loopholes there may be in the law and changing that. But we haven't had those conversations at the Illinois State House, regardless of Republicans saying we need to tighten up the law, either A, get rid of it, bring back money bond, or B, have a larger net of detainable offenses that judges can't release somebody on awaiting trial, right? These are all criminal suspects, innocent until proven guilty, and they have a right to a speedy trial. And being incarcerated before that trial is something that the end of money bond is looking to essentially allow for them to be released pending trial for certain crimes. But, some questions about, is this effective? Again, President Donald Trump calling out Governor J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, just before Thanksgiving.
And I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank Pete Hegseth. The job you've done here is incredible. And I hear you having the same kind of success in Memphis, Tennessee, where you had an even worse situation. And Memphis crime is down 64% in 3 weeks. And by the time you have 4 or 5 weeks, you're going to have it down almost where there won't be crime. And we could do that in Chicago, by the way, if they would let us. If the mayor was a low IQ person, but he should understand this. This is a very serious thing. You saw all the crime that took place last night, the night before. The woman with the burning, they burned the woman. To be talking about that now. They burned this beautiful woman riding in a train. A man was arrested 72 times. 72 times, think of that. And they'll let him out again. The liberal judges will let him out again. But we're ready to go. We've been moving toward Chicago. We have a governor that thinks it's wonderful that only like 7 people were killed this week.
And the president went on from there, called Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker a, quote, fat slob. You can watch that video. Again, available at the Center Square's YouTube page. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get updates when those things get posted. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, posting on the city's official Facebook page for the Chicago mayor's office, had this in response, posted just a couple of days ago over the holiday break.
President yesterday called you out and called out Governor Pritzker and referred to problems in Chicago once again. Do you have concerns that him continuing to talk about this narrative, whether it's accurate or not, is going to hurt people visiting Chicago and hurt the tourism?
It would be nice to actually have a president that focused on his job. We have unemployment that is higher than it's been in 4 years. People are obviously experiencing cost of living increase. Food is expensive and unemployment continues to go up. He spends most of his time figuring out how to send billions of our tax dollars off to other countries. If he was really serious about supporting the city of Chicago or cities across America, again, he would not defund our community safety investments, right? I mean, he's cut the ATF budget by 30%. You know, what we saw last weekend was how dangerous it is when young people or any person has access to guns, particularly illegal guns. We've removed over 20,000 guns off the streets of Chicago since I've been mayor. And many of those guns are being trafficked from states that voted for Donald Trump. I don't spend much time thinking about him. 90% of what he says is likely to be untrue anyways, because this was the same president that tried to take credit for violence going down in the summer months, even though he wasn't here.
So that's, again, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson reacting to President Donald Trump, calling him a low IQ mayor, and what exactly that's going to mean for the ongoing debate about public safety in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago. We'll be watching closely as after the holiday break, you've got even more that's going to be happening, including president's going to sign some bills in the Oval Office this afternoon. Will he have some time to take a series of questions, and will he talk about Illinois and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker? I guess we'll see. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to get the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com. Sign up for the newsletter and wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus Daily.